Welcome to the UP Notable Books Club, brought to you by the Upper Peninsula Publisher and Authors Association. Jon C. Stott has been previously honored for Yooper Ale Trails, Craft Breweries and Brewpubs of Michigan's Upper Peninsula, 2023. He is a man with many interests, including the natural world, UP history, professional hockey, and of course, a good craft brew. Wild Blueberry Summer, More Upper Michigan Moments and Memories is actually the second memoir of his cottage visits and local ramblings in the Crooked Lake area. The first book, Summers at the Lake, Upper Michigan Moments and Memories, spans several decades, while Wild Blueberry Summer follows his adventures over a single calendar season.
Since we're just about at 6 o'clock, I usually turn it over to Victor and he kind of fills us in with a little UPPAA news before I introduce Jon.
Okay, I changed my audio settings again. How do I sound?
You sound good.
Okay, my name is Victor Volkman. I'm the current president of the Upper Peninsula Publishers and Authors Association, and I'm very happy to be here with Evelyn Gothu in the Crystal Falls Library. Thank you very much. And I would like to talk for a few minutes about the UP Reader, which is one of the most exciting things that we do at the Upper Peninsula Publishers and Authors Association. Anyone who is a member can submit work in whatever genre they write in, short stories, memoir, poems, and it's a juried selection. It's very competitive, but that means we publish the very, very best stuff. And we just had our 10th anniversary issue, which is simply amazing. And next year's issue is going to have a little theme around the Copper Country. So if you're stumbling for what do I write about the Copper Country. But if you don't have anything to say about that, that's okay too. So it's just merely a writing prompt. So that has officially started, and anyone who's a member can head over to UPPAA.org and search for that. Or if you aren't a member, go there anyway and sign up and become a member so you can submit your story. So the selection process, or the submission process will go on until November 10th, and then the jury process starts. And if all goes well, it comes out of the chute around April 1st of 2027. So that's our big push for this year. I will hand it over to you, Evelyn.
Okay, very exciting. So before I introduce Jon, I just want to say we do have a change in the schedule, which I will put out when I send an email wrap up about today's talk tomorrow. Next month, we will be covering Superior Stories instead of Terry Martin's Straw Horse. Those two are swapping months. So I will write that all up and update everybody about that. It's a very slim volume. You'll really be able to read it in a couple of hours, and very good. So tonight, I'm going to borrow this book here next to me. Tonight, we have got Jon Stott, who will be talking to us about his book, Wild Blueberry Summer. Take it away, Jon. Two-time UP Notable Books Award recipient.
Well, hello, and thank you very much. I'm very honored to be in such august company and to be able to share today what I love, which is summers in the UP. Although this year, unfortunately, I'm going to be in the city of the pavements gray. That's Albuquerque, New Mexico. But if you look over my shoulder, I'm leaning, you can see a picture of the lake. So when I get tired of looking out the window, the cars squealing by, I turn to the wall and look at the pictures of the UP. And so many of the people whose names I see here, Suzanne and Sharon and Victor and Evelyn, have been very important in helping me bring Wild Blueberry Summers to ripeness. And I'd like, if I may, to tell you a couple of things about the book and read you a section, and then we can have a conversation about summers. I wanted to call it Blueberry Summer originally, and I noted that there was a 1944 teenage romance book called Blueberry Summer. And so Victor and I decided that we can't just use that, or they would think it was about teenagers in love. So Victor suggested Wild Blueberry Summer, and that's so much better because the wild blueberries are so much a part of July in the summertime in the UP. They're the center of they're the star of the book in many ways, and you can see they are the cover people of the book. Can you see? Is that holding up? Okay, good. Well, um, I wanted to shape it around the seasons because I usually get to the little cabin in the big woods in mid-May or later May, and I'm already greeted by a snowbird that's arrived, and that's the hummingbird. And he buzzes at the screen porch until I get the darn feeder out. And he's not very pleasant. He doesn't say, welcome back. He basically is saying, get that darn hummingbird feeder out there. And then outside the side door, there are what are called non-invasive species. I hope that's what some of us snowbirds are, non-invasive species, but they're forget-me-nots. And a little clump appeared about 25 years ago when my wife was still alive. And she told me, please don't clear them away with the winter leaves. And so every year I've kept the forget-me-nots, the blue forget-me-nots, outside the side door, and they remind me of summers past. So that's my May. Unfortunately, some years I'm greeted when I get out of the car by hordes of mosquitoes, but those of you who are Yoopers are familiar with that phenomenon. And I hear this year that they're really kind of bad. Well, gradually the summer people start coming back, and gradually um, the days get longer in June. It's lovely when you go out at 10 o'clock and you see the sun setting behind the two white pines at the north end of the lake. And then people arrive, and it's the 4th of July, which I will say is not my favorite weekend at the lake because the serenity disappears, but then it comes back again. And the flowers change, the loons arrive with their babies, and there are so many wonderful things that it's changing all the time. And my daughter just let my dog in.
To get on, Dad.
My daughter's trying to get on.
No, Debbie is.
Oh, Debbie's trying to get on, a friend of mine who did the pictures. So we'll hopefully see her up there. But
the link's not working for
Deb says the link is not working, Victor. Deb's the lady who did the photographs in Wild Blueberry Summer.
Sure. I think I've got her email. I'll send it to her personally, I think.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Victor.
If I can.
And then after Labor Day, the days get shorter, and you start realizing that one of these days the loons will be gone, the monarch butterflies will be gone, the maple leaves will start turning, and it's time to hunker down elsewhere for the winter. But it's the May to September, sounds like a pop song of the 50s, that I try to capture in Wild Blueberry Summer. That's my prelim.
Okay, great. So now you mentioned something about reading us a little piece. Do you want to do that now or later?
Well, I've got two pieces, but I'll say that when I set out to write this book, I knew that there was going to be anxious hummingbirds in September and goldenrod at the end of August. And I knew I'd be writing about the ripening of the blueberries. But there were some general topics that I wanted to deal with, but I didn't know what I was going to do. And one of them was simply the activity of staring, with your eyes. I had to memorize a poem when I was in ninth grade. I had to stay in after school to finish memorizing it. But it was by W.H. Davies, and it's called Leisure, and it says, what is this time, if full of care, we have no time to stand, and stare. And so I wanted to write about that. And one day I was just going in for my before dinner short swim. And I was just standing there, kind of staring vacantly, and I heard a noise in the rushes. And I turned and I stared, and this is what I wrote. I start out about the W.H. Davies poem. When I'm at the little cabin in the big woods, I often take the time to stand and stare. Sometimes I'm not staring at anything in particular, just letting impressions sink in. Other times I see something really interesting that makes me focus my attention on it. Yesterday, I had a staring experience that started as the former and quickly became the latter. I had headed down to the lake for my late afternoon dip and waded in waist deep before I stopped and began to stare. It was a very quiet afternoon. There were no boats on the water, and except for myself, the only living object seemed to be the loon chick, a brown smudge a couple of 100 feet from the shore. I watched it for a few moments, wondering where the parent was. Then I found out. I heard a sound in the reeds less than 20 feet from where I stood. I turned and then froze and then stared. I could see her head move forward, the parent loon, and her beak open and close as she sent a warning to her chick. She did this 2 or 3 times, each time moving a little further from the reeds. Then she pulled her head back and without opening her beak, gave a long, mournful, almost howl. She moved quickly up to the chick and staying very close to it, herded it further and further from the shore. When they were a long way off, I stopped staring and started my swim. Neither of them seemed to care. It was a wonderful, thrilling experience. I'd never been so close to loon before, and although I'd heard loon calls, the birds were always in the distance. I'd never seen them making these calls, and I probably never will again. But because I'd taken time to stand and stare, my life was richer.
Oh, that's nice.
Beautiful.
And another
Oh, that-
time, I wanted to, I go to the Kingston Plains just north of Shingleton every year. It's just a place that's out of the past. The stumps there were from the 1880s, and there are little kettle lakes, not with water in the most of them. And I was just sitting there listening to the sounds of nature. And then I heard thunder, so I started to head back to the car. And there was a big stump, and there was a space beneath the roots. And I saw a little serviceberry bush coming out in the opening in full bloom. And that was something I didn't expect to write about, but it happened, and it was wonderful. Now, if I may, you may see in the corner Deb LeBlanc's name. I'd like to introduce Deb. She is the lady that takes the pictures. She's been a friend of ours for nearly 50 years. And you can take a walk with Deb. She was a forester for over 40 years, but you can walk 100 feet and see things you didn't even know exist in the little trail behind the house. And I see some friends from the Jack
Yep.
Pine in in there too. But Deb, if you can come into the picture, and I'll talk about these people soon. But
Okay.
don't. Um, anyway, Deb has been a friend, as I say, for years and years, and she's been a photographer from years to years, 4 years. Excuse me, I get so tied up when I see my friends. Um, can you tell us a little bit about how you became a nature photographer and how you picked the uh,
Yeah, I did.
the stories from the photographs for Wild Blueberry Summer?
Sure,
You're
John.
on.
Actually, it happened a long, long time ago when I was pretty little. When I turned 13, I wanted my own camera. And my mom and dad gave me a camera, and my grandma LeBlanc and grandpa LeBlanc gave me a camera. And I got two Kodak Instamatic cameras for my birthday. And I just always, for very early age, loved taking pictures of plants and animals. I remember I wanted a single lens reflex camera, and my dad told me, someday when you get a job, you can buy one. Because he had one. I wanted one. So my very first job when I started working in 1977, it wasn't my first paycheck, but it was close to my first paycheck. I bought my first single lens reflex, a Fuji. And one of the very first pictures I took with it was of pink lady slippers. So so now we're to digital phase, and I take quite a bit just with my phone now too. But yeah, so I just enjoy doing it. It's very relaxing. It's just a lot of fun.
I'm going to open the
Do
book.
you take pictures of animals too?
Sometimes I like sandhill cranes. It depends on animals. I like to take photos of sandhill cranes and loons in particular, swans.
Okay.
But primarily I like to take landscapes, pictures of landscapes. And then, of course, working as a botanist for many years, of course, plants. I have hundreds and hundreds of photos of plants. And John, I saw my very first ever, and they're incredibly rare, white lady slipper. Looks like a pink lady slipper, but it's pure white. And its species is Canadum for Canada. So it's a distinct species, an incredibly rare plant. So
Victor, can you show this picture of the lady slipper?
I just showed you that, so I just.
Yep. So that pink lady slipper, what I found on Sunday was an all white one.
This is a
Wow.
picture that Deb took, and the pink lady slippers are kind of funny to me, or they're interesting to me. You've had all these little tiny flowers coming up in May, and one day a lone lady slipper is there, and it's hanging its head. It reminds me of the big tall kid at school that's embarrassed to be around the little kids, but it to me signals the transition to the bigger, brighter flowers of summer. And do you have? Oh, you don't have your book with you, do you, Deb? No.
No, John, I forgot it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I forgot my
She
book.
sells her photos.
I'm going to see a couple more that Debbie has done. Oh, here's the sandhill crane. And this is over here. There's the lady slipper again on the back cover. And and I have a picture of my dogs here somewhere too.
Yep, they're in there.
There they
There
are.
they are.
There's the dock of the bay that I sit at as often as I can, and just stare. And they like to come down and sit with me, and then look at the birds on the lake. But I have to keep them from going swimming after them. But the white one is Katrina. She's getting really old now. And Hanky, who is sitting at my feet here, wondering what the heck's going on. But they're wonderful photographs, and Debbie did the photographs for that, and also for the first book, which is Summers at the Lake. But I see a lot of my friends here. You may want to ask some questions. Sharon, you wrote a very nice review. Thank you very much. Sharon Bruner, I should tell you, is an author, and her most recent book, Anishinaabe Dreams, is about the traditional culture of the Ojibwa people and what's happened to it in later years. And anyway, she wrote a nice review. Did you spend the money I sent you? No. Anyway, Sharon, tell us about things, about your books too.
Okay, I wasn't prepared for that, but yeah, Anishinaabe Dreams is the one I just, had published. And right now I'm working on Anishinaabe Blues, which is a whole different way of doing things. I'm writing about modern day Native Americans and what they're going through. Why does alcoholism exist? Things like that.
Interesting.
But Anishinaabe Dreams was like short little explanations about this is what a powwow is, this is what a lodge is, this is what a, different parts of Native American culture. And then I wrote a poem for each section. And so just to give people an idea of, this is what's going on. And so sometimes the poems contained information that the narrative didn't contain. So you're going to learn from both, and I have 11 books published and 7 are about Native Americans. So.
Well, you are a member of the Sioux tribe of the Ojibwa Nation, aren't you?
Yeah, the Sault Ste. Marie tribe of Chippewa Indians. I'm a member of that.
Chippewa, yes. I'm a Canadian. We say Ojibwa. Anyway, I would also, there's the picture. Hold this picture. On Friday nights when I'm in the UP, I go to the Jack Pine, and my friends Suzanne and Tony and Nancy and Fred, we have a corner, and we always seem to have the same kind of thing, and we have a get together. This is the pavilion outside the Jack Pine, where Nancy was very kind in allowing me to do the launch last year of Wild Blueberry Summer.
Oh, nice.
So, other questions of things people would like to ask me about blueberries? Don't ask me where my patch is. So,
No, we don't tell.
no.
How long have you been going to the cabin?
I went there. We used to camp at Caldwell Lake for many years, and wherever we were, whether we were out in Kalamazoo or out in Western Canada, we'd go camping. And one day it was a rainy, drizzly day and a wind from the north, and my daughter Claire and I and a couple of people decided to walk down by Crooked Lake Cabins. That was 40 years ago. And we discovered this place. It had 2 rooms, a pump handle, and the owner said to me, "Don't stand near the pump handle because the lightning will jump from the fuse box." It hit my wife once, and then she was still there though. And then we liked it. We paid $11,000 for it. After a couple of years, Claire and Carol said to me, "If you want us to come back next year, we want indoor plumbing, please." And so I've been going there for 40 years to the little cabin in the big woods. And there's a term I use in the book, querencia. It's a term I learned in New Mexico. It means a love of place. And it's not just the place, it's the spirit of the place, the history, the people. And it's something that grows and becomes a part of you. And what I've experienced over 40 years is an increasing sense of querencia.
Querencia.
Now, maybe my friends from the Jack Pine will tell us about how they discovered this little neighborhood of ours.
Yeah, that's cool.
How did we find it? How did we find it? Oh, we snowmobile.
up here about 30 years ago. And we came up through the woods on our snowmobiles, freezing to death, of course, because it was really cold up here in the winter. And we had our daughter, and they were having a big get together, which they call what do you call it? The
Relic ride.
The relic ride, where all the little old, really antique snowmobiles come out. And that's how we found it. And then years later, we came back to camp, and we camped at Coltwell once, and I don't know, a lot of the other campgrounds around, and then we just kept coming back to the Jack Pine Lodge. We just kept coming back to eat because they have really good food
And use the Wi-Fi.
And well, Wi-Fi wasn't.
Not back then.
Wi-Fi
Back
when
then,
we started.
yeah.
There was no Wi-Fi.
That was our draw.
And we got to the campground here about 10 years ago. We were driving past again with our camper, and I said, wait a minute, I see a campground back there. And we pulled in and looked, and I think we stayed 2 weeks, came back the next year and never left. Met Nancy and Fred. Made a lot of good friends. John being the latest.
Yes. And we came from Caldwell Lake, hosting the campground there. And that was when Kevin was first putting in the campground, and he wanted to know what campground hosts do. So we sat down and we talked with him, and he said, well, can you start right now? And we're like, no, we have to finish up at Caldwell Lake. But then we came and we stayed a couple of months in the fall, and we liked them and they liked us. And so this is our 12th year up here hosting. And we would come for the food and the Wi-Fi because there was no Wi-Fi at Caldwell Lake. So. Okay,
Well,
your turn.
you know, I heard a lot of people, I heard a podcast the other day that it was about where does up north begin. And when I lived in Kalamazoo, people used to say, oh, somewhere north of Ludington. But for most of us, it begins when you come on the northern downward slope of the bridge, and you feel you're in a new world.
Oh,
Yeah. They just had a map that was posted on Facebook and wanted people's comments. And it said, where does northern Michigan start for you? And someone had an imaginary line like from Traverse City across to Lake Huron, and then that whole northern part of Lower, and then all of the UP is northern Michigan. And my response back was, no, it's the Upper Peninsula is northern Michigan.
across the bridge.
You gotta go across the bridge.
Well, let me ask the Marys to share their connection with the UP. Mary Tip first.
Mary Tippett. I was typing my name into the
I'm sorry, Mary.
Tippett.
Yes.
I grew up in Ishpeming, graduated from Northern. My family has had a camp on a private lake ever since before I was born. And so our summers were all sort of revolved around the lake and the weekends. And there was one year when my dad was working for CCI, they were granting 13-week vacations to some of the people. And so Dad had the whole summer with us at the lake. And the things that you've experienced with the loons, it's been ducks and their ducklings, owls and whippoorwills and eagles that fly, fishing. And then I had not realized how broadly the practice of picking blueberries was until I was much older. It was always a ritual for us at camp. But later in life, my mother said that my Finnish great-grandfather, who homesteaded north of Ishpeming, would open up his property and rent out places that he would designate for different people. It was their little plot for blueberry picking. They would come from town and pitch their tents and have a blueberry picking bonanza, because he lived where there was a lot of the sandy soil that blueberries like. Yeah, in our family, it's been kind of a sacred experience to be able to sit there and harvest the berries off the bushes and then clean out all the leaves and things and enjoy my mother's wonderful pies and so forth. Yeah, really, I'm looking forward to reading your book. It sounds beautiful.
Well, I'm going to read about the first blueberry picking of the season in a minute, but Mary Frances.
Yeah. Well, we lived for 19 years in Tawas City, which is straight across from Traverse City, but to us, north was like when you get to Mackinac City and cross the bridge. And summers was a good place, the time that we would head for the UP. And we tried to explore as much as we could. I think about the only thing we missed the first when my kids were young was the big spring. And last time I was in the UP, I made sure to take that in because I wanted to make sure that I got to see Kitchity Kippy. And I found out about it because I was teaching piano lessons, and the people that wrote the book were from Michigan, and they put a song in about it. But yeah, I guess you have to say, even though I was quote unquote a troll, I've been a wannabe Yooper. My son spent several years working and trying to make a living in the UP. And I really, you were talking about that sense of place. And I think that's what is there for me. In Northwest Montana, where I am now, it used to be like that, but now we're being overrun with people moving here and tourists and so I as I was driving through the traffic jam today getting home, I was thinking, if I was in the UP, it wouldn't be like this. So
Somebody once called Munising at 5 o'clock the rush minute, not the rush hour.
yeah,
Here.
It's pretty funny.
yeah, it's a lot different than when we moved here 18 years ago.
And where is this? Up near Priest Lake or?
We're in Kalispell, which is just west of
Oh, I
Glacier
know
National
Kalispell.
Park.
Yes.
Yeah, about a year ago, it was the fastest growing area in the United States. It's like apartments and subdivisions and hotels are popping up like mushrooms all around us. And
I can only say,
not
oh
happy.
dear.
Yeah.
I have a piece I'd like to read. It's called The First Harvest. There's a ritual I do is in the when I first get up there, I go to my secret blueberry patch and see how it survived the winter. And then every few weeks, I keep coming back and coming back. And finally, it's a bonanza. It's the end of the first week of Mini Gises, the blueberry moon. Over the last month, I've been learning about blueberries and making occasional trips to inspect my secret blueberry patch. There has been some rain. The days have become sunnier and the nights warmer. It's time to gather my first harvest. There's a ritual to be followed for my most anticipated event of the summer. I dress in long work socks, a very old pair of corduroys that are thin and shiny at the knees, a green and frayed workshop, the cruising vest I used to wear when I worked in the woods 60 years ago, and a beekeeper's hat with a face covering mesh. It has never occurred to me to wear anything else, and I won't until these vestments become unwearable. From a shelf on the screen porch, I gather a Kitty's sand pail. Carol bought it several years ago at a Manistee sidewalk sale. It's bright pink, she remarked, so you won't lose sight of it and accidentally kick it over. Inside it, there's a square piece of aluminum foil that's wide enough to cover the picked berries in case I do kick the pail over. I say goodbye to the dogs who look woebegone. Dogs aren't good blueberry picking companions. I learned that long ago when, before I'd acquired the pink pail, a long ago four-legged friend had knocked over a coffee can and gobbled up all its contents. I head to the car and am about to begin the 5.9-mile drive to the SBP, Secret Blueberry Patch, when I realize I've left the pail on the kitchen counter. I go back to the house, explain to Hanky and Trina that I'm not back to stay, retrieve the container, and start off again. I feel a twinge of nervousness as I slow down to turn onto the 2-track. Will there be enough blueberries? Will there be another blueberry picker there? Or has there been one before me? There are no cars, and as I drive slowly towards my picking spot, I spot a lot of berries. Yes, I say to myself as my anxiety dissipates and the joy of beginning the activity I've been dreaming about all winter in the city of the pavement's gray surges through me. I park the van off the road, roll down the windows, put my keys and wallet on the dashboard. I don't want them to fall out from my pockets of my cruising vest. I tuck the cords into the long gray work socks, put some mosquito lotion on the back of my hands, pull a mesh over my face, grab my pink pail, and head to the spot where ripe berries seem most plentiful. I should be at least able to harvest 3 cups of the tiny sweet fruits, one for muffins I'll enjoy in a few days, and 2 more for Claire to take back to Albuquerque. I step over the small bank that separates the road from the field and sit in the middle of a clump of bushes that bear the most fruit. I nestle the pail firmly between 2 stems, lean forward, and pick the biggest berry on the branch before me. But I don't drop it into the pail. I remember this section in Anishinaabe author Louise Erdrich's book, Books and Islands in Ojibwa Country, in which she describes the people's first blueberry picking expedition of the season, one in which thanks is given for the gift of these wonderful foods. I am thankful. I think of the goodness of nature and the joy my first picking gives me, and then pop the blueberry into my mouth. It tastes sweet and juicy, and I'm sure it's good for me physically and spiritually. And that's my first one of this. And I do take them back to Michigan and back to Albuquerque. And one of the things we do when we get back is we have a Yooper brunch. What you can see here is a cookbook, which we got at Snowbound Books, based on the book Blueberries for Sal. And you can see next to it is a can of blueberry ale from, I think it was Ordock. And brewers have told me if you don't have blueberry beer on your menu, you're going to be in trouble. Then next to that is a beer glass full of blueberries. Next to it, you can see I hope you can see the bottle of syrup. That's a bottle of syrup from Harry Hagland, who lives just north of Shingleton, and every year brings his friends and sometimes school children to his sugar maple trees, and they make maple syrup the old time. And then at the last, there is a bunch of coasters that my sister gave me with a recipe for blueberry pie. And so I bring the UP back to me, the beer, the memories of picking the blueberries, and we make muffins and sip that wonderful beer. And that's my blueberry experience.
So you gotta tell us where that secret spot is so we can go check on it, make sure it's okay.
Yeah, I know. It's some of you may remember a long, long time ago. I think it was Doris Day sang a song called "Secret Love," and it ends as "Love's no secret anymore." Well, I'm afraid my blueberry patch is no secret anymore because some of the people that are sitting at that table know. But they don't tell anybody else either, so that's good. Other summer, I'd love to hear other summer memories and observations you have.
Good question.
Any summer memories?
I've got one.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
This one is a little bit more Montana. Out here we have
None that we
wild
can,
huckleberries,
Oh,
which are
yes.
similar to blueberries, a little more tart. And one time when my son was about 1 year old, I had him in a backpack on my back while I was picking. And at the end of it, I discovered how many berries he had grabbed and eaten or dropped into the bottom of the backpack. And his
Was he
pants were never
purple?
the same. I could not get that berry out.
No.
They were purple.
Yes, yes. Well, I remember
That's
when my daughter was a year old and we went blueberry picking in Pawpaw, and she was in a little carry, one of those things that kind of sit on the ground, and she came home purple from head to toe. You mentioned Montana and up near Kalispell. I think it's really interesting that after he left summering in the UP, Jim Harrison, who spent his summers around Grand Marais, moved out to Montana and did trout fishing there too.
yeah, the fishing is good. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, a lot of places are now being kind of snapped up by private outfitters and it's,
Mhm.
not as open as it used to be, but it's just the way of the world, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Well,
the hunting is like that too.
yeah.
Judy's got a summer story here.
So, we've lived I grew up in the UP and spent a lot of summers, evenings. Didn't live on a lake then, but then later on went on, did my life, but then spent the last 15 years on a lake. And I say it's where I raised my grandchildren. They all came from all over Colorado, California, whatever, through these 15 years in the lake. And just the summer memories of, the evenings, but the children, my California grandkids, about 8 years old, 7 years old, they would always clamor to sleep in grandma and grandpa's bed and you'd sleep with the windows open and I'd be like, listen to the loons. And my grandson would be like all about it and listening. And I just remember my granddaughter saying, but grandma, I think the loons are a little scary. And when you think about them, like for me, they were always so peaceful hearing them. And for the most part, I think they all very peaceful, but I thought that's interesting and then I started sort of listening and you could hear the eeriness in the sound. I still find it very surreal and peaceful, even the eerie sound of it. But so memories of the UP for me will be loon sounds. One of them, loon sounds at night.
Well, one of the interesting things when I wake up in the middle of the night, and I'm old, so I do frequently, but that's another story. Anyways, when I hear the loon out on the lake, to me it's a happy sound because that loon is signaling back to the nest, to the spouse that's on the nest, that all's well so far with the world. And but it is a beautiful and a strange sound.
It's
You're
just so
right.
peaceful and captivating, really, in a way. But to have her, I think it's a little scary.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
John, I
Yes.
have a couple of quick blueberry stories that I just thought about. When we first started coming up here, I was used to picking blueberries on a big shrub, the stand up and just pick them. And Fred was telling me about the blueberries up here, and I said, where are they? And he said, well, they're over there. And I said, I don't see any blueberries. He said, well, look underneath the ferns. And I'm like, what? He said, yeah, they're under the ferns. I said, no, they're not. He said, yes, they are. And by golly, there they were. So, and a couple of years into hosting the campground here, one of the campers brought me a small Dixie cup with some blueberries in it. And I thought, well, that was really nice. And then I went out and tried to pick blueberries, and I went, that was really nice. I didn't appreciate it. But yeah,
It's a lot of work.
it is a lot of work.
Yeah.
So.
One of the things I write about in the book
Oh,
too
she's trying to
is
say
canoeing.
something.
I'm not a skilled canoeer or by any means, but I like going out early in the morning and paddling and drifting, and you'll hear an occasional screen door slap. Somebody's come out to get some firewood to light a little fire, or you can smell bacon frying, and it's just a wonderful quiet. One time I was out, and a bald eagle was up on the tree where he always is, looking haughtily down at my interference. And then I paddled a little further, another one came swooping down right in front of me. And I've never seen two at the same time at the lake before. That was one of those unexpected, wonderful little occurrences that I've had up there. And I don't need anything other than my eyes and my ears, and for blueberries, my taste.
Shelley had a summer story to say. Do you want to say it there, Shelley?
I do. You just reminded me of years ago, we own 40 acres and we have lots of blueberry patches on our property. And so years ago, my mom was up visiting and we went out picking, and we happened upon like a hill that had a lot. I mean, it was loaded. It was just loaded. So much that rather than picking and moving, we sat down. And after about 2 or 3 minutes, my mom jumped up because she had ants all over her.
Oh, yeah.
The ants had taken over that hill and they didn't want her picking those blueberries. But it's like, I just remember, and it was just funny. We both laughed about it, and but what an enjoyable thing to do is when it's nice out, and is to pick berries and then make all that stuff with them.
I just think we're all romanticizing because my father, he's 83 now, I think, but his memories of going with his grandpa, who was German, Herman Schindler, blueberry picking was an all-day event. They'd pack a thermos of coffee and they each got a piece of toast, and they couldn't come back till 3 in the afternoon, you know. He doesn't have these fond memories. It was a big job for a little boy, when the way he puts it.
My husband always tells the story of his mom, a widow with 7 kids, and they had to go blueberry picking, and they all had a quart pail. They were not allowed to come home until everybody's pail was full, and then their mom would, take care of it. And they'd always like be on the other sibling that was messing around and not getting theirs filled, because they'd all be held up.
One of the things as I listen to the stories, our joys are simple joys. I mean, we don't need all the modern conveyances and things. Just picking blueberries, being out on the water, hearing a loon at night. They're things money can't buy.
That's true. That is
true.
I think when you grow up here, you take it for granted, though. I often think about that, how like those sounds or the eagles, and then like I've been spending time away in the winter, and I do not so much miss the snow and the below zero weather, but it's like other environments, you're like an eagle, I was just used to these eagles swooping down or going across or sitting on my deck and looking at the pine trees or stuff like that. And you just really start to kind of take it for granted sometimes.
Mary Tippett had something to say, to add?
Yes. From a historical perspective, in some of the research that I've done, there used to be a blueberry train that ran from Ifremer to Munising. And at least they called it the blueberry train. And an important part of income for many families, regardless of their walk of life or their employment, picking berries in the summertime and selling them was part of their livelihood. In fact, I had 2 hermit great uncles who lived out north of Ishpeming, in their documents that we found in their attic, there were bills of lading for how many crates of blueberries they shipped to a produce dealer in Chicago. I don't have any idea what the numbers were, but the history that I'm hearing too, even among the Barnes Hecker people I've talked to, is there was an expectation that you had to pick blueberries until you couldn't pick them anymore because it was a necessary part of either your income or the canning or the baking or whatever it was to sustain the family. Really important. And that to me adds another little dimension to the spirituality of the whole experience, because it just takes so many things and compresses them into what we have to stand and stare today. I love that phrase, stand and stare.
That's not mine, that's a poet's.
One of the people I interviewed for, who attended the boarding school down in Mount Pleasant, he shared with me that his summers, because he was older when I interviewed him back in 2000, his summers were spent, picking blueberries and selling them to the lumberjacks out in Rayco area, Brimley area. And that's how they got through the winters, the money they made by selling those blueberries, in the summertime to the lumberjacks. So
I think that I'd never heard of the blueberry train, but that's wonderful. If you've got those paper materials you saw, that would make a wonderful little story for one of the UP magazines.
It would make a great story.
Mm-hmm.
I may do that. I think there were some of my Barnes Hecker people use the phrase "the blueberry train," so I need to go back and listen to some of my content again so I can talk that out and do something with it.
That would be wonderful. It really would.
I was really surprised at that. Even when you think about the differences in time frames and modes of transportation and how people could get from one place to the next. In the 1920s, the trains ran everywhere.
Yes.
Everybody was able to travel by train. Didn't matter if you had a car, because if you had friends in the copper country, you just hop on the train in Nishpeming and end up in the copper country and not have to worry about how you were going to get there, how you were going to get back. I wish we almost had a taste of that once again, because I think we lose a lot of the slowing down and the seeing things through the windows and the people that you see on the train. I think we miss a lot of some of the cultural aspects of the life that we have been the recipients of now in our generations.
Mm-hmm. Yes, indeed. Evelyn.
I've got a question. So one thing I notice about Jon, talking to him now a few times with UP Notable Books, is, Jon, you've got such a nice, peaceful demeanor. And you've written now about blueberries and beer. So maybe your friends there at the bar there can explain to me, are you peaceful, or is it the blueberries and the beer that make you this nice, peaceful author? What is the truth?
Well, I can tell you that blueberry picking is bliss to me. It is a spiritual experience. And when I bring back about 8 or 10 little bags, and we make muffins right through until February or so, and it brings back that the little curve in the road where I park my car, the ruts. They must have had heavy equipment in many years that the blueberries bushes are in, and the terror that comes when I hear a car coming and stopping on the road to pick with me. I don't love company when I pick blueberries.
That's a great title for a piece too. I don't love company when I pick blueberries. That'd be a great title for a short piece.
Yes, and I don't like, as I said, I love my dogs, but I don't like them there either. They're not very helpful to me.
My dog discovered that she liked blueberries, and so we were competing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to point out, if you can see the pictures here, a couple of interesting things. There's the dock, as I say, and the lake is not very wide, but just on the other side around here, there's a little peninsula that comes out from the main into the main part of the lake. And I often think when I go over there that I've come into the UP. I usually come in through uh, the route from Green Bay, but I cross the bridge. I'm on a peninsula. I pass Peninsula Point where the monarchs come in the fall, and I sometimes go down to see Fayette Park on the Garden Peninsula, but it's this little tiny peninsula. I go over there. Nobody's chopped any trees down. There are no footprints or anything there, and I sit in a way that I can't see anybody, any of the cabins or any of the lake, and I feel that I'm back when the early woodland people were there. They there, some relics have been found of the early woodland people just across the lake from me. So I'm not the first, and my neighbors are not the first people to celebrate Crooked Lake. Evelyn, I wrote a little piece, and I'm wondering if I can kind of read it to you people.
Sure.
I wrote this when Nancy and Fred at the pavilion, which you can see up there, had a launch for me, and it was on the day of the summer solstice, and I read some pieces, but I wrote something special for it, and I think it applies to my friends who are joining me today, to my neighbors, both the human and, as Kimmerer would say, the more than human people, and it applies to everybody. It's called It Takes a Peninsula. Many years ago, when I was visiting a school to read from a collection of children's stories I'd written, a girl in the audience asked, "How do you write a book?" I gave a simple answer about the 3 R's. I told her that you find something interest you want to learn about, and then you research, write, revise, and then share. I thought about the little girl's question last winter when I was revising Wild Blueberry Summer. If she'd asked the question then, I'd have made a better and more accurate response. It takes a peninsula to write a book. The important words are peninsula and create. That's because this book is a celebration of the places and the people, human and more than human, that we've come to know and to appreciate over the last half century. At first, we knew only our next door neighbors, who have long ago left us, but gradually we met other neighbors and became a part of one of the only 2 wonderful neighborhoods we've lived in. The other was in Kalamazoo over 50 years ago. And we came to know and love the landscape and its history, staring at the point across the lake, which early woodland native peoples visit, and expanding to visit places like the Kingston Plains, where there are little kettle ponds formed when the ice retreated 1,000 years ago, and stumps from the late 19th century logging era dot the landscape. The flowers from each season became our friends, and we eagerly awaited the arrival of them as the weeks passed. The hummingbird, the loons, the robins, fellow snowbirds were already there when we arrived in late spring. Each year, I've made new friends of human snowbirds, including the Friday night group at the Jackpine. I've gradually come to know and befriend many Yoopers. People who don't flee south when the first maple leaf turns red or the first snowflake drifts to the ground. Deb, who's been a family friend since the 1970s and whose pictures grace this book, has shared her knowledge of the land and its history with us. Sharon Johnson, a wonderful teacher from Munising, gave me the opportunity to tell the first Paul Bunyan stories that I turned into a book. Norm Johnson turned a fairly primitive cabin into a comfortable second home for us. Harry Hagland, whom I only met last year, gave me the gift of homemade non-industrial maple syrup that we use to top the wild blueberry pancakes when we return each fall to Albuquerque. And there are my wonderful writer friends, especially the three S's, Sharon, who's with us today, Sharon Kennedy, who couldn't be with us, and Sue Harrison. We gather together once a year and we call us the three S's. Don't ask, it's Sharon, Stott, Sharon, and Sue, but it also stands for scribblers, which is what writers called themselves in the 18th century. There are my wonderful writer friends who have encouraged my writing, and Victor, who opened avenues to publication. Some of the stories of these human and more than human friends are in this book, along with much of what I've learned from them. Without the UP and the friends I've made here, this book could not have been written. It takes a peninsula to create a book.
Oh, that's very nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well,
John,
thank
I
you.
was gonna
Yes.
tell you, when you mentioned about reading at Munising schools, I had to have physical therapy last fall.
Mhm.
And my physical therapist is from Munising, and Lisa was in the mill, the bookstore in Manistee, and they had
Yes.
one of your books in there. And she
Uh-huh.
was looking at the book, and she looked to see who the author was, and she goes, "That's the man who came and talked to my class when she was in elementary school."
That was in the
Lisa,
1980s. Yes.
yeah, and so she couldn't wait to see me at physical therapy, and this is when I went into physical therapy. It was for my knee, so I would
Mhm.
avoid knee surgery. And
Yeah.
she said, "Deb, do you know?" And I said, "Yeah." And so when physical therapy ended, I gave her one of my books, Wild
Oh,
Blueberry Song.
that's wonderful. I
But
must
she
tell you.
remembered you made such influence to her. She remembered you, and seeing the picture right away, she knew.
Well,
And I thought that's really cool, you know?
she and Sharon Johnson, who is a wonderful teacher too, gave me the first opportunity to retell the Paul Bunyan stories, which I later put into a book. And without them and the children that they let me tell the stories to, I told them how Paul made the Sini stretch. It used to be 95 miles long and crooked, but he got Babe and they straightened it out. And stories like that.
Yep.
So,
And she
yes.
remembered that. Yeah.
Mm.
And she was a child back then. So, because she's married and our kids are in college. And so
Uh,
that was really wonderful. And so anyway, I wanted to let you know that
well, thank you.
you've influenced a lot of people.
I see another lady with a palm tree behind her. Shelley, welcome. Where are you visiting from?
It's a fake. I'm in Ishpeming.
Oh, okay. Well, it looks very tropical, but maybe you can do palm trees in Ishpeming. I don't know. Well,
I don't
thank you
think they'd
people
make it
very
through the
much for
winter.
joining me. Thank you to my friends, all of you. It's fun to talk to. I'm sorry I won't be able to make it up to the UP this summer, but I will stare at these pictures behind me, and then I will take myself in spirit and visit you all in the places that make wild blueberry summer so wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Thank
John, for
you.
coming.
Thank you, John.
We're
Thanks,
so
Betsy.
glad you were here tonight, and all your friends
Yep.
and everybody else. And next month, we hope to see you all back for a very short, very, very short book called Superior Stories. And I'll send out more information about that tomorrow. Thank you.